afternoon, good evening. Yours truly, Professor Dr. Dolphy Gilpin. And here we have two oscilloscopes here being projected here. The Leader oscilloscope, 1.00 megahertz, that is 1000 kilohertz or 100,000 hertz. And we have the Textronics, which is more sensitive in the low frequency of 0.4 megahertz, which is 4 kilohertz and 4000 hertz. Now, the history of these oscilloscopes is way back in about 1987 at 1407 New York Avenue, Flatbush Garden. That's where I purchased the Leader oscilloscope for about $1,500 at the time, and the Textronics for about $400, approximately $2,000 for the combined scope. And this was a part of my laboratory. I call it my own laboratory, our apartment laboratory at 1407 New York Avenue in Brooklyn. At the time it was called Vanderveer, now it's called Flatbush Garden. So I had a little laboratory there with equipment so that I wouldn't have to travel over to City College, which was a long journey, to the 502 laboratory all the time. So that if I came home from work, from the Board of Education, and I was tired, I would just work in my apartment laboratory, which was fairly equipped with instrumentation. That is the history of my oscilloscope. But the purpose of this is for the establishment of the God frequency. Yeah, the God frequency, which is the frequency of divine illumination, so they say. The frequency of which the pineal gland is activated, and we have connection to the divine. 963 hertz, which is 0.963 kilohertz, or 0.963 multiplied by 10 to the minus 3 megahertz. And so I've drawn a diagram of a Leader oscilloscope 0.1 meg here, and the Textronics with 0.4 meg. So I've drawn it, and right now it's sort of physically intangible. So abstractly, I've attached it to my faculty, from a faculty connection here, and to derive certain benefit from it, though it be physically intangible. Now, I sent the Textronics to the Caribbean, on the island there, and there I left the Textronics, but the Leader 0.1 meg, which was at the time $1,400, $1,500, was left back here at the Flatbush Garden, 1407 New York Avenue. Another thing about this number 1407 is significant in that the discovery of the planet Super Saturn was named J1407b. This is the identical or congruent number of my apartment. And coincidentally, I had like a mini, what do you call it there, with a lot of pictures of the planets. A lot of pictures of the planets at the time, and Saturn was included. So I don't know how, but they named 1407 5A, which was my apartment, 1407 JB, as a super planet Saturn. I don't know, somewhere in the 2000 year it was discovered, Super Saturn, J1407b. So that's a sort of connection to this number, which has now become significant, more than one. So here we have now the 0.1 megahertz Leader oscilloscope, and I've drawn it. This is the power diagram with the power cord, and here we have attachment from the output of the oscilloscope to the input of a signal generator. And the same thing with the Textronic here, an output to a function generator. And a signal generator. We could also have further attachment with filters and modulators, of which I had in the apartment laboratory at the time. But I just put these main things, the oscilloscopes and the signal generator, like that. I've also established the frequencies for the visible spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum, with Roy G. Biv from 4 kilohertz, from 4 terahertz to 750 terahertz for the visible spectrum, with 400 to 480 red, 480 to 510 terahertz orange, 510 to 330 terahertz yellow, 530 to 600 terahertz green, 600 to 670 terahertz blue, and 670 to 700 terahertz indigo, 700 to 750 terahertz violet. And you also know that we have an infrared, which is compounded with a microwave spectrum, and infrared goes up to from 3 terahertz to about 400 terahertz. The infrared and the microwave spectrum. Whereas the ultraviolet goes from 7.5 multiplied by 10 to the 14 hertz to 3 multiplied by 10 to the 16 hertz. And the wavelength thereof of the ultraviolet is 10 nanometers to 400 nanometers. So I'm still doing, though I'm not physically attached to the school, abstractly, and in my faculty I could still attach to this $1,500 0.1 megahertz Leader oscilloscope. And also looking at the monitor here, we have an electrocardiogram here, a PQRST normal wave, and those waves are usually generated, let's see, a standard wave from 0.05 hertz to 150 hertz, and at a higher level from 3 hertz, 115 hertz for the PQRS complex, and 3 hertz for the P wave. 115 hertz, PQRS complex, and 3. This is for a normal PQRS electrocardiogram. And we have shown in other outings how to use the oscilloscope to work as an electrocardiogram. But our main thing here, we are establishing the God frequency, which has the pineal gland connected to it, and this is for divine illumination, divine communication, and one can also experiment with infinitesimal incremental frequency with millihertz attached to the 963 kilohertz, which is the 0.963 kilohertz, which is the God frequency, which is also 963 hertz. So if we have, say, 0.963, 01456, I'm just giving a small increments to it, what difference will it make in the connection to the divine frequency? For we know that sometimes with the divine frequency, if you are focused on it, for me, and it is easily interfered with if you're not concentrating. If you're not concentrating mentally, it is easily interfered with. For example, speaking in tongues, you will be speaking in tongues, and if you're not concentrated enough, then you'll find that you will lose the connection of that tongue, which is sort of a divine sort of revelation to the same tongue that they're talking about in the olden time in speaking in tongues at the upper room when the disciples went by there and the Holy Spirit came down as cloven tongues upon the disciples and they began to speak in tongues. That's a divine connection and a God frequency, and it has been established to be 963 Hertz, which is 0.963 multiplied by 10 to the minus 3 megahertz. So this is an introduction to my Leader oscilloscope and my Textronics with attachment to signal generator and function generator. We could also attach it to filters, noise filters, and get some clearer picture of what's happening. Let's try to give a more clearer magnification view of these oscilloscopes and the God frequency. I want you to remember that we could experiment with a plus or minus infinitesimal amount and see what happens to the communication, with the God frequency. So this is a magnification view. So we have the power cord here attached to 115 to 120 volts. Source, and then we have some connections here to signal generator. We have the monitor showing an erratic sort of a rhythmic wave and also normal PQRST and a U wave, which is sometimes transient. And here's the Textronic also showing ECG PQRS ranging 115 Hertz QRS complex and 3 Hertz the P wave. And once again, we remind you of the chronology or the history of this oscilloscope. It was bought in about 1987, and it has been still going on doing work with it. Whereas I left the Textronics in the Caribbean there. But the Leader was left back, which was more expensive, $1,500 in the United States. So that's a power cord to the Textronics. And we also have connection, input and output to signal generator and function generator. We could also connect modulator and also other things. We could get triggering and all of that, and also measurement of waves and voltage and current using this oscilloscope. So that's a magnified view.